Hi, everyone. John Michael Coppola here, and welcome to the Chicago Theater Makers Podcast, where we chat with the actors, directors, choreographers, designers, producers, music directors, lyricists, playwrights, and all the artists who make the Chicago area theaters come alive. We're so excited to have you here with us today. But before we get started, we just want to remind you to please like, subscribe to, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues who you think would appreciate the conversations we're having. We'd be so grateful for your support in this way so we can continue to bring these stories for years to come. Thanks again for being here, and now, curtain up on today's episode. Today's guest was born and raised in the southwest suburbs of Chicago. After graduating from Columbia College Chicago in 2009 with a BA in acting, she worked with various storefront theaters here in town until 2011. From there, she moved to Dublin, Ireland, and pursued her master's in theater and performance from Trinity College. After taking a few years off to travel and explore Europe, she returned to Chicago in 2022 and has been performing in theaters in the Chicagoland area ever since. Most recently, she was seen as an understudy in Raven Theater's Top Girls. However, more recently, she was awarded a Jeff Award for her portrayal of Harper Pitt in Invitcus Theater's Angels in America. The entire acting company was also awarded for Best Ensemble. Now, many of you listening may also be aware of the very public controversy of the abuse allegations against that production's director. While we do chat about these events on today's episode, we do not mention any of the specific allegations. They are all well documented on the internet, so we don't need to rehash them here. A Google search will point you to any and all information you might want to know. And with that, I hope you enjoy my conversation with Anne Trodden. Now let's go to the top of the show. Hi, Anne. Thanks for joining me here on the podcast. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. Listen, you may be aware that we have a little tradition here on the podcast, and that is to ask all of our guests to tell our listeners, please, a little bit about your background, where you grew up and your training, etc., and then finish up with your first theater experience. So I hand it off to you.
Great. Yeah. So I'm actually, well, I guess I shouldn't say Chicago native because I'm from the Chicago burbs. I know there's a big beef about whether you say if you're from Chicago or not. But yeah, I grew up in the southwest suburbs, so Oak Forest, Tinley Park area, but my family's all from like southwest side, like Beverly, Mount Greenwood, that area.
Yeah.
And yeah, I went to school here, and then I went to my bachelor's was at Columbia College in Chicago. So I graduated there. I won't say what year exactly, but a while ago. I got my master's there, and then I did act around the city from like roughly 2008, 9-ish to like 2010 or 11.
Yeah.
And then which I think we'll talk about a little bit later, but then I went to Dublin. I got my master's in theater, specifically like playwriting and Irish theater. And I didn't leave for a while because I met my now husband. So I kind of lived in a few different countries around Europe for about 10 years. And then in 2022, we decided to move back. Well, for me, it's back home, but my husband's Irish. So for him, it was to Chicago.
Sure.
And yeah, we moved back in 2022. And then I've just actually kind of slowly been getting back into like the acting theater scene. It's very interesting because obviously I left before COVID and then came back, and it's obviously a much different landscape since then. So yeah, that's kind of where that's like from my beginning to now. And then as far as like, I think you said my favorite or my first theatrical experience.
Yeah.
Well, two things really stick out in my mind. One is that my first ever play I did, I was 5 years old, and like a good little Irish Catholic girl, I played Mary in like a little like birth nativity play scene. And I think that's where I got hooked, to be
fantastic.
And then after the other thing that really sticks out in my mind is that I remember I was supposed to go see Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat when I was in about 5th grade or something, and I ended up getting the flu and I couldn't go, and I was I don't think I've ever been more destroyed in my entire life. I was so terribly upset that I had to miss it. Yeah, so those two things really stick out in my mind. Obviously performative for me.
I think Joseph has come up a few times on the podcast of that being people's first show. I think it's between like that and Sound of Music and
Yeah.
And Anne, I don't know if Annie was in there, but Joseph has definitely been in there a few times, I'm
Joseph
sure.
was a big
So
one, I think, for like millennials. I feel like
yeah,
that's the first big one that I can remember being like a hit and like traveled and came to Chicago and everyone was like, you have to see it. Yeah.
I consider the outlying suburbs still the Chicagoland area. I mean, come on, let's be real. I grew up in Westchester County, which is just outside of the city of New York. Now, Westchester is not part of the city. It's also not upstate New York. But
Yeah.
there's, when you say you're from the New York area, you're from the area.
Right. When I was in like Dublin and London, when I lived different places, I always said like I was from Chicago, even though, I'm not going to say, whoa, I'm actually from a small town, 40 minutes outside of
It's much easier.
it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you went to Columbia. You did the training out in Ireland, which we're going to get to because I'm very fascinated by that whole
Mm-hmm.
journey. Tell us a little bit about some of the influential people in your life in those respective institutions that you went to.
Yeah, yeah. So when I went to Columbia, Sheldon Patinkin was still the chair of the department. Like,
Oh,
rest in
fantastic.
peace. Yeah, rest in power, big guy. He was fantastic. He was like an amazing, just sort of mentor and coach to really everybody there. But I mean, I worked with Susan Padveen and Caroline Lotta and David Woolley, I believe, is retiring this year, who does like a lot of stage combat in and around the city, and Paula Mendez, and Wendy Weber. I'm not sure if these names ring any bells, but those were like those were my, oh, and Susan Padveen as well. I said Susan Padveen, Susan Gosdick, sorry. Anyway, and yeah, those were sort of like my mentors or people, that I sort of looked up to and really learned. And Paul Mendez, especially, like he was the one that sort of got me into Irish theater. Because in my undergraduate, I took a whole sort of module on Irish theater. And that sort of leads into my eventual master's program.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by that because I wasn't aware that there was such a discipline as Irish theater. So considering that you were so fascinated by it and that brought you all the way to Ireland, I'd like to know, first of all, what defines Irish theater? And then
Yeah.
what made you decide, what, I want to dive into this concentration a little bit deeper to make you want to move all the way to Ireland? That's quite the journey.
Yeah, so my last show at Columbia was a main stage production of Playboy of the Western World, by J.M. Singh. Great, beautiful show. I think someone did it here a few years ago. Anyway, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful show. And I am unsurprisingly from the south side of Chicago. I'm of Irish descent. I don't know,
Yes.
pale skin, burns, sunlight we don't mix well.
Right.
And I think that when I got exposed to that, I guess as far as like what encompasses Irish theater for such a small island, it has like just such deep cultural roots of storytelling and poetry and playwriting and like a sort of heightened language and magic. And I think you go there now and it's even like I said, even though it's a tiny island nation, it has a huge canon of like people of playwrights, male and female, that have come out of there. Obviously, Oscar Wilde is huge. Samuel Beckett, like I said, J.M. Singh, and even some of the newer ones like Brian Friel and Martin McDonough and Marina Carr.
Yeah.
That's what I really loved. I think I love about theater in general too, is that a lot of Irish playwrights, I think, naturally write in almost this sort of like magical realism way, and that it's very much grounded in like characters, but then something sort of like not quite real happens, or is a little bit like outside of like a very traditional like Arthur Miller play, and
Sure.
that really always spoke to me. So that's what I love about Irish theater, and that's like that doing that play sort of ignited that. I mean, I'm sure it also touched also me being of Irish descent. It's sort of like I felt like I tapped into like a sort of cultural like wealth that I didn't really even know existed, to be honest, before then. It sort of sparked that in me. And then I worked for a little bit around Chicago, doing like some children's theater. I did at Lifeline, and I did some other productions as well with Jackalope Theater when they first started. So I graduated with like Kaiser and Kaiser Ahmed and Gus Maneri and Andrew Swanson, who all kind of founded that, and AJ Ware. but anyway, like, so yeah. And then I worked around the city for a while, and then I think I hit that like quarter life crisis where I was just like, I can't wait tables anymore. And I was like, I know I really loved Irish theater. Why don't I go? And I never studied abroad while I did my undergrad. So I was like, why don't I go over to Ireland, like really deep dive, get my master's and come back and teach? That was my grand plan anyway.
And you spent how many years there?
Well, my master's program was only a year, but then
Oh,
I met my husband, who is Irish. So that was the plan, right? I was like, great, I'll go, I'll get my master's 1 year, come back, and then start like teaching. That was like my plan. And then
yep.
I met my husband, and I just like well, quite honestly, he invited me to like spend the summer in Paris with him, and like, I mean, what was I gonna do? Say no? And we had a great. I mean, I had a great time, and I really fell in love with like just traveling, and I didn't act for a while. Like I just got a day job, sort of working in communications, marketing and communications, and I lived
In Ireland.
in Ireland originally, and then but then I lived in Belgium for 2 years, and I lived in Paris for a year, and then I lived in Scotland for about 5 years before we moved back. So
Wow, you really were all over.
yeah, like we moved around. We just kind of we didn't have, and at the time we didn't have kids, so it's sort of just like, why not,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, do you speak French?
Un peu, ouais, ouais. J'ai habité en France. No, yeah, I did. I lived in Belgium. That's where I learned it, in Belgium and
Okay,
France. So I speak enough to get by, but please, please don't speak quickly at me. I'm out of practice. If anyone
exactly.
comes up to me, I can though. I can speak. I can like I can hold a pretty good conversation.
No, that's fantastic. I would imagine you need to know the language pretty well to be in the marketing and communications field because you're
Yeah.
communicating in another
Well,
language.
yeah. I mean, I was actually working for the Radisson Hotel Group. So
Ah, I see.
I was working for an American company, but I mean, it helped just to get around,
Sure. Yeah,
talk to
yeah.
people.
We actually have a family trip planned to Paris in May, upcoming
Well,
trip. My wife and I have been twice before. In fact, just a little anecdote about how my wife and I met also abroad. She is also American. We were doing
oh,
a musical in Zurich, Switzerland, of all places.
wow.
And our first date, you could say, was in Paris. And we went back there as a little trip again after we were married, and we were home from some tour, and this little advertisement came on TV, like, you know, fair discount fares to Paris and London. We just looked at each other and went, "You want to go?" Yeah. So we
Yeah.
booked it and then went back there. We love it there. We've not been back since. Now we have our adult son, then we're going to go back as a family in May.
Yeah.
So it's a really magical place. So
I
it's
was
kind
going
of
to say, yeah, always, if anybody listening, always choose Paris. If there's ever a choice, always choose Paris.
yeah, yeah. Belgium's beautiful too. We've
It
been
is.
there. Yeah,
It's nice. Especially if you like World War II and World War One stuff, loads of stuff. Like if you're into like World War One and two history,
yeah.
loads to do. Yeah.
So while you were in Dublin, did you do theater there? Is that part of the master's program, or is it just all academic process?
It's different now, but when I was there, it was purely academic. So all of my studying was just like taking different sort of philosophical lens, like either feminism or like there's whatever, like a bunch of different things, like taking lenses and applying it to like scripts and plays, and then
I see.
writing, kind of examining theater works through these different sort of like either philosophical or sort of gendered lenses, or like like philosophical lenses essentially. But that being said, there was like a performance. There was like it's slightly different than how we had it in the States. It was like basically that there were productions, there were like theater productions, but it was all like a student led organization.
Hmm.
So all the plays were sort of organized, like the whole like series of shows was organized by the students and cast and run everything with like just kind of minimal supervision from faculty members.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I actually went to college with Jack, the guy, oh God, and his last name escapes me, but Prince Joffrey, from Game of Thrones. He
Yeah.
was in Trinity when I was there because he was actually doing his degree in like something like religious studies or something, like nothing to do with theater, but
Wow.
he did theater, and he's a very nice guy. But yeah, he was there, and I hung out with him, and I drank with Prince Joffrey. It was great.
Amazing. Now, since you're a playwright, I'm wondering if you had any of your plays produced anywhere that we might have seen or should be aware of coming up.
No, not yet. Honestly, like I wrote, well, they were all in, I haven't done them, or we haven't been produced since, or they haven't been produced since, like I had them mounted in a few stage readings in Ireland, but I haven't done any in Chicago here yet. Um,
And are they Irish plays, Irish theater plays? Or are they traditional, anybody can produce them type plays?
oh yeah, no, anybody could produce it. One of them, but I kind of like want to go back. You know what? I wrote them like probably about 8 or 10 years ago now, and now I'm like I want to go back and like tweak some things
I'm
before I
sure.
start like sending them out around Chicago. But my favorite was like I wrote a play. I guess it's I probably was inspired from Wicked, to be honest, or Gregory Maguire. Is just that it's kind of modern, or not modern, but like a retelling of the Tempest from the view of Sycorax, like the witch and Caliban and Ariel.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's like about what happens before Prospero and his daughter and Miranda and everybody arrive on the island. So yeah, that's my favorite. And I just want to tweak some things, and then I might start sending it out to like people to read or maybe even produce eventually. But yeah.
Oh, what a great concept. I mean, that sounds like it's ripe for Chicago Shakes for sure.
I mean, yeah, I love it. Like, I think it's a great idea. I made Ariel and Caliban's mother Sycorax sisters instead of like they have like a whole relationship before Prospero arrives. So, yeah, I just found like Prospero, like what like a I think he's such an apt metaphor for sort of like capitalism and patriarchy, and how he sort of invades this land and kind of like sucks like the natural resources out of it. Anyway, so I thought I just wanted to sort of examine that play in a more like, and give like the women, quote unquote women of that story, even though they're not really gendered. I
Yeah.
wanted to give them a sort of like feminist like voice in it. Yeah.
Oh my God, that sounds so fascinating. Best of luck with that. I hope
Thank
to
you.
see more of it about that in the future.
Yeah.
So now that you've been such a world traveler and you've done the Irish theater thing, I'm curious, did you see any other theater when you were in Europe, in either Paris or Belgium or anywhere else? And among those, if those uh, opportunities did
Mhm.
occur, and anything here in the States, any that you can recall from being like some of your favorite theater experiences?
Well, I mean, I lived in Scotland for a while, so I saw a lot of stuff at the Fringe, which was always like a blast.
Yeah.
I also did like I saw a lot, obviously, like in at the Peacock, like which is the big like national theater of Ireland,
Okay.
and the Abbey. I'm trying to think. Like, to be honest, one of the like plays that sticks out to me the most wasn't, I saw in London. I saw a version of Hamlet, where what's, oh god, Benedict Cumberbatch, when he played
Yeah.
Hamlet. I saw that. Um, he's like he's just fantastic. Him and
Yeah.
like Andrew Scott. Like, I never got to see him perform live, but like just watching how they handle language and their mind works. It really just inspires me. Everything is like it feels like every line that they have is like a new discovery, and that's what I enjoy watching, or I feel like are the best quote unquote performers are people that really are in the moment, and I like just watching them is just a masterclass in like just being present and constantly discovering everything, like watching the thoughts just sort of bubble up and form and work through them as they perform. So that really stuck with me.
You mentioned in your intake form about Top Girls that we
Mm,
didn't catch you to interview in before it closed in
mm,
March.
yeah.
So I sorry I didn't have a chance to have you on or anybody from the production on. That it was at the Raven Theater. Tell me a little bit about that show, because I wasn't aware of it until I read about it, and sadly we didn't have you on before it closed.
Yeah, no, I love that show. And actually I really came to it pretty recently because I don't even know if I mentioned this, but I've taken some classes with Kathy Scambiatera at the Artistic Home, her Meisner classes.
Okay.
And one of the scenes that I got assigned was from Top Girls, and I had never read the play before then. So for like one of those, I think it was Meisner 2 or 3 that I was in, I got assigned a scene like the kind of last scene between the two sisters. If you're not familiar with the play, there's a
Okay.
big kind of confrontation between Marlene and Joyce, and Marlene's a very kind of right well, I shouldn't say right, conservative, conservative leaning person, and Joyce is more like left or like liberal leaning. And they have like a big kind of well, and among other things, besides politics, just about personal things and issues and stuff. And it's a beautifully written scene. It's incredibly hard because all of Carol Church's, if you ever seen that whole play, it's like everybody just talks on top of each other. But you have to kind of find the moments where it's not just noise when you're actually listening. So it's like, I love it because it's such a unique challenge as an actor to be like, okay, literally we'll have like half page to pages of dialogue where we're supposed to be two characters or three characters are speaking at the same time, but you have to listen. If you are not listening for 1 second, you're gone. You're lost. You don't know where you are.
Sure.
And then the whole rhythm of the piece is like thrown off. So it's such a, it's such a beautifully written play, and it's just such a challenge for actors. So it was really lovely to get introduced at the artistic home and then get a chance to do a full run of it or to do a full version of it was just like a real gift. So,
right. And you were an understudy at Raven.
I was an understudy. Yeah. I understudied Marlene. Yeah.
Did you ever have to go on? I'm just thinking of that scenario of having to have all that dialogue, a cacophony of dialogue, and how to just sort of step into that environment and not freak out about it. So I was just curious.
I will say I never had to go on. They got Claire Kaplan was like absolute perfection. She was wonderful as Marlene. And thank God, I'm not one of those people, honestly. I usually don't take understudy work just because the anxiety, like it's not because I'm like too good for it or whatever. It's actually so much harder, like I think, than being like like a principal cast.
Yep.
I only took it because I wanted to. I never worked with Raven before. I love the play. But yeah, I never had to do it. But we had a dedicated understudy run. And let me tell you, we only had about 4 rehearsals before we actually did it. So to do that whole show, and it's like about a 2.5-hour play. So to do that on only 4 rehearsals was another, like, added another like layer of complexity. But it went really well, and I was really happy with it. And yeah, it was a great run in general. The whole show was beautiful.
So glad to hear. I'll have to keep my ear to the ground on Raven Theater.
Yes.
More of what they're doing in the future. Any bucket list roles that you'd like to play?
Oh, I mean, probably my number one is Blanche in Streetcar. That's like a one I would absolutely love to play. And then the other one is actually from an Irish play called By the Bog of Cats. It's sort of like a modern Irish version of Medea. And there's a character, she's called Hester, but she's essentially Medea. And it's a beautiful, wonderful script, and I would love to play her.
I'm not familiar with that play.
Yeah, By the Bog of Cats, Marina Carr, really great. She's got a few like hits that were really big, and like I want to say the night. She's kind of a contemporary with like Martin McDonagh. Her and him have very kind of similar, well, maybe not similar vibes, but they were producing a lot of plays around the same time.
I see. So I do want to mention that the thing that I saw you and became aware of who you were was in your portrayal of Harper Pitt in Angels in America at Invitcus Theater, which of course you were nominated for, many of your castmates, and you won for Best Featured Performer in a Play. Congratulations on all that. I'm sure many of our listeners are aware of a bit of tumult surrounding that production, which of course was very well documented, very well warranted. Since I have you on, I'd be remiss if not asking you to give us your perspective and your feelings about everything that transpired.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to like speak about it, to be honest.
Of course.
I mean, quite honestly, like up until, all these allegations, it was the best experience I've had, like doing theater, like full stop, period. The play was, talk about like a bucket. I mean, you want to talk about a bucket list role. Like it's one of those parts that I never, who would have thought like I would get a chance in a storefront theater to have a chance to do that play and that part. So I feel incredibly like honored and grateful and just like, humbled to like, be in that show and to have it received, and everyone involved, like the cast and the crew, like gave their heart and souls to that piece. And I hope it was pretty evident from that.
It was. It was a wonderful production.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess, I don't know if you want me to like, just, I mean, I'm happy to talk about my experience with Invictus and Charles and everything.
This is your time. You're welcome to say whatever you'd like.
I guess the best way to describe it is it was just a shock. Like, as I said, I mean, I'm like from the area, but I had moved away. And so actually Invictus was one of the first, one of the first theater companies I worked with after I kind of like came back and started to get like dip my toes back into the theater scene again. I did network with them in 2024 and had a positive experience. So that's why I kept auditioning for them.
Sure.
And I mean, all I can say, and I don't want to like, I don't want anyone to misconstrue things in that, like, I wasn't there. I'm not trying to deny anyone's past experience,
Sure, of
but
course.
all I can speak to is myself and my own experience. And, like any of that behavior, I'm not, I'm a little older than 20. I feel like I'm fairly confident in myself and what I would put up with as like a human being. If I had ever saw any of the things that had been or that are alleged, like I never would have worked there again. I would have like quit right away or just called out,
Sure.
and I would advise other people not to. So as you can imagine, me and a lot of other people that had worked there fairly recently were really shocked, to be honest, because like it's just not my experience. In fact, it was quite the opposite. Like he was like Charles was always very supportive, like all the stuff that's being alleged, like all I can say is like that never happened to me or around me.
Yeah.
So it's just really unfortunate because it was just a shock. Like it's really hard to like reconcile like hearing these kind of really vicious, awful stories and
Yeah.
then not have like, and then you start questioning yourself because you're like, wait, did I miss something? Like, and you like start replaying things over and over again.
Sure.
But and I'm still processing it. And like, listen, I talked to lots of other people that have worked there recently, and that was they had they have very similar feelings to me, just like kind of just being shocked and feeling like that this has come out of left field.
Yeah.
If there's anything more specific than that, I'm happy to tell more.
No, that's perfectly fine. I appreciate you sharing, that much at this point, because as I said, everyone sort of has their own perspective as to what happened. Yours is certainly as valid as anyone else's. For my part, I was ultimately surprised at the Jeff's response to it or lack of a public statement about any of it until after everything had transpired, after he was given the award, etc.
Yeah.
I just think as sort of the central organization for the Chicago theater community that's supposed to represent everyone's best interests, maybe. I mean, at least that's what they say. There's been proof in the past that they don't necessarily always, and these types of things have happened. And have they been alerted to in the past, not with just Charles, but others, and they've sort of done the same non-response or
Yeah.
inaction up for it all. So I appreciate you coming on and speaking frankly about it because, I think it's an important conversation to continue to have, for everyone that was involved or whose experiences were different. And,
Yeah.
I, as many others were, I saw the video of the speech his girlfriend also made that night, which I think was very out of line. I just the context of that speech was just mind-boggling to me in as far as the comparison that he made or that she made.
Yeah.
Sorry, I felt like I was interrupting you.
No, I just like, I guess just to add on to that is just that, yes. I mean, we were told very last minute because as you can imagine, like that night was not anything I'd ever imagined in my wildest dreams.
I can only imagine. Yes.
What it was going to be like. And we were told pretty last minute that he wasn't going to attend. And I was also told like he wasn't going to be speaking as well if he did win. So I don't think any of that was planned. And I agree. I don't think it helped the situation.
Yeah.
I don't think it was the smartest thing to do. I mean, even if we're looking at it on purely, and I hate to say it, but a political or just sort of like removing the ethical and moral and all the other implications on top of it, I just thought it was not the smart thing to do.
Yeah.
Especially if you're involved in the middle of investigation. And, I personally think I after it came out, I'd kind of hoped he would have just stepped back and just said I remove myself from these proceedings. I think that probably could have been, well, listen, the Jeffs could have done things differently. I think Charles and Invictus could have done things a little bit differently.
Yes.
But I agree. I just hope, I think the only thing I would also like to add to this is like, I just come back to like, I want to make sure that, because I feel like the discourse can get quite heated, and that's fair. I understand, like, there's lots of feelings, there's lots of like very hurtful, very harmful things that are being alleged, and I don't want to take that away from anybody, and I don't want to take anyone's platform away. But I want these things to come to light, and I want us to be taken care of, and I want people to be held accountable for past behaviors. I just also urge a little bit of empathy. I made a video right before the Jeffs came out, because there's so much emotion, and I really understand it. But I know there were multiple people that wish they were there at the Jeffs last night, and they were afraid to be there because they were involved with the show. And like, I got some backlash about being involved with the show, which isn't really, you know what I mean? It isn't fair. And I understand like people are just being protective and defending themselves. But I sometimes, it's the blessing and curse of social media in that it brings us together, but it also makes things so black and white. And I just want to urge people to like, remember that it's not just him. There are other people that are involved that, weren't aware of it. And please let the investigation play out. I'm not saying and please don't take that again as like, I think he's innocent. That's Agreed. Not what I'm saying at all.
Yeah.
But let that come out. I believe in at least giving them the chance to do the right thing after this investigation comes out. If they don't respond, as I hope they will, obviously that changes things. But
yes,
I just encourage like empathy and give people chance. Like, we talk about being a community and being better, but if we don't give the people a chance as well to like right that wrong and do better, then I think it just ends up feeling, I know I felt like this at some points, just it feels very bullying on the other end too, of like, it then becomes like a sort of mob frenzy, which I know isn't the point, right? That's not the point. That's not what we're trying to achieve here.
Right.
So yeah, that's my only other like addition to all of this is like, give both the Jeff Awards Committee, I mean, I think their response is a bit milquetoast, but at least I hope, like, I'm also going to give them a chance to do their investigation and like see if and I hope they come out and say, like, just put it into places. I think some things that are common sense. Like
right.
if we do show, so if there are signs of abuse, like we rescind nominations, we don't reward that behavior, right. Like simple things like I think that are kind of common sense. And, follow best practices that we see across the country. I would hate to lose the Jeffs as an institution. I think it is, for lack of a better word or way of describing it, like, I think it's a great way to reward. I think like hard work and really excellence should be rewarded and celebrated at its best. But, inaction and, not listening to the people that you're supposed to support and uplift also isn't acceptable either. So I think there's a way to move forward. But I just also urge, I guess I just give them time. I know they've issued a kind of lackluster, or maybe not exact, like the action that we want right now, but I also want to urge people to give them a chance to do the right thing. They're supposed to come out with something in July, I think. And I know I've actually spoken to the investigative effort that's going with, I don't want to reveal it. I mean, I've been asked not to speak on
any, of course,
but I was interviewed. I have been a part of that investigation. I know that's well underway, because I also asked when can I hear? And they said, we can't give you anything definite, but they are working diligently on it. So anyway, that's I will get off my soapbox. I hope people do the right thing. And I want to give both these organizations and institutions the opportunity to do so before making any swift or final judgment on everything.
No, I appreciate your perspective on it all, because you're in the middle of all of it, the entire firestorm. I will say the one thing that struck me about the Jeff's statement is that they said they would look at peer organizations to see how they
Mm,
handled such things. And I would argue that they should probably go their own way and lead by example and not look at what others are doing, regardless of what they are. I mean, if it's a standard that you want to emulate,
mm,
that's for the better, great. If it's something that could be looked upon by a few people as not really doing enough with these types of allegations, then why not be at the forefront of it? Why not, as I said, lead by example, that these other organizations may say, hey, you know what? The Jeff Awards did in Chicago. Maybe we should rethink our processes when these types of things come up. I think
yeah.
it's a great opportunity for them, and they're sort of resting on their laurels and kind of taking a wait and see approach, which is not what's needed right now for anyone.
No, and I agree. I mean, why not both? Why not, look and see what everybody else is doing
Yeah.
and saying like, oh, that's something we can learn from, we'll pull from there. And then maybe just also pull from like recent examples and just say like, listen, maybe that's a good idea, but you know what? That's not good enough. And let's do it this way. Let's like Chicago, we can handle it. We are, we're very proud. Like, I think, I'm very proud to be part of, like, from this city and a part of this community. And, I think the whole community is a bunch of activists,
Mm-hmm.
like we're theater makers, but like, I think all art is political. Right.
Yep.
So, I think why not lead by example? And I think this is their opportunity. But like I said, I know it's not exactly the response everyone would like, but I hope after this thing, they can do the right thing and move forward and maybe feel more justified to say, like, we did this extensive research and we found this, but you know what? Even after that, we don't feel like it's enough. So we're going to do this. That would be,
Right.
I feel like I'm hoping that's the ideal outcome.
Agreed. Agreed.
Mhm.
And I hope that even with all that has gone on, that you were able to enjoy, in some respect, the honor of being an award recipient, you and your castmates, because it was such a wonderful production. It really was deserving of all the accolades. And so I hope at the end of the day, you can walk away with the knowledge that you guys really put out a really beautiful show.
Thank you. Like I said, if nothing else, like even besides the award, just like meeting those people. I
Yeah.
mean, they're like family. I mean, they are family now. Like we still talk like on a weekly basis. Like you can
Love it.
imagine we did 8 hours of theater, you know what I mean? Like eight
Yeah.
hours of theater for like 6 months. So we're all extremely close. And if nothing else, like it's one of the most beautiful summers of my life and I will always treasure it. So that's honestly,
Wonderful.
that's the true gift of that whole process.
Glad to hear that.
Mhm.
Do you have any advice that you would give aspiring theater makers or any lessons that you've learned that you would impart to others?
I feel like the advice is kind of conflicting, but I'll give it anyway.
Sure.
Especially when you're young, like when you're first starting out, it is like please, like kind of say yes to everything, even stuff that you're like, I don't know about this, or don't ever count yourself out too. Like even if you're like, I don't know if I'm right for this part, let the casting people make that decision. You
Uh-huh.
just commit for it, go for it.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen because I feel like along the way, even if it's like not your perfect or not a dream show or whatever, you might meet somebody that eventually you get on, you click with, and you end up starting a theater company or you do this other production or they recommend you for something. So you never know like where those relationships will take you.
Yeah.
And then the conflicting advice is like also know when to say no or like, and I think, which is hard. That's like, like, but I think it takes going through that, like saying yes to everything to realize I like this, I don't like this. This is for me. This style isn't for me. And then as you kind of continue to do stuff, when stuff comes along, eventually you'll get to a point where you'll be like, you know what? I know I've done this already and I didn't enjoy it. It didn't fulfill me. I'm going to pass on and recommend. And that's like the other thing too, I would always say is like, recommend your friends as much as possible. That's what I try to do is
Yeah.
just like, I love like sharing people that I'm like, I don't know if I'm good for this, but I'm going to make sure this person knows, or I'm going to recommend these people, and give them a chance. Cause I think they'd be perfect for it or great fit for it.
Yeah. I love both those pieces of advice. And the third one of recommend your friends if it's
Yeah.
something you're not right for. Yeah. Or that you have to turn down for any number of reasons.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Any parting words for our listeners before we wrap up?
No, I mean, thank
That's
you.
okay.
Yeah, no, I just love, I like, all I can say is like, I'm so grateful to be back here in Chicago, and doing what I love, and cast me, I guess. Like I'm
You bet. Use it as such your biggest platform to get some work. No problem. Cast Anne Trodden, please, please, please. Hey, where can people find you online?
I mean, I'm mostly active on Instagram, or that's usually where I post any kind of work or projects I have. And it's really easy. It's just my name. It's at Anne with an E, ANNE .Trodden, TRODDEN. So if you follow me there, I'm always posting like what I'm working on, or what I've just seen that's amazing, and want other people to see.
Fantastic. Well, Anne, thank you again for joining me here on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us at the Chicago Theater Makers Podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. The Chicago Theater Makers Podcast is a production of Spirit Art LLC, and our podcast theme music is by Paul Langford. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the podcast, please drop us a note at our website, ChiTheaterMakersPodcast.com. That's ChiTheater, makers with an S, podcast.com. We hope you enjoyed spending time with us as much as we enjoyed spending it with you, and we'll see you on the board soon.